Not every destination lives up to the photos. Some places look incredible online, get talked up endlessly, and then deliver an experience that ranges from mildly underwhelming to genuinely miserable. Here are 20 places in the US tourists regret visiting. Number 20. The Hollywood Walk of Fame, Los Angeles, California. The Hollywood Walk of Fame is one of the most visited tourist attractions in the United States, which is genuinely baffling once you have actually been there. The walk covers roughly 15 blocks of Hollywood Boulevard, and the experience of visiting involves navigating a stretch of pavement crowded with street performers in sweaty superhero costumes, aggressive souvenir vendors, and a surrounding neighborhood that is, to be charitable, not at its best. The stars themselves are embedded in the sidewalk, which means that to read them, you are essentially crouching on a busy street while pedestrian traffic moves around you. Finding a specific star requires either advanced research or luck, since there is no helpful map embedded in the ground directing you to Marilyn Monroe's star. There are vendors selling maps, but the vendors are part of the problem. The boulevard has struggled with homelessness, petty crime, and general urban decay for decades. The Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, which administers the Walk of Fame, has undertaken various beautification efforts with mixed results. The TCL Chinese Theater nearby is genuinely historic, and the Hollywood Museum is worth the time. But the Walk of Fame itself is consistently rated one of the most disappointing tourist experiences in the country. The gap between expectation and reality here is roughly the width of Hollywood Boulevard. Number 19. Times Square, New York City, New York. Times Square at night in photographs looks like the center of the world. In person, particularly in summer, it is the center of a very specific kind of sensory overload. Crowds so dense that movement requires sustained effort, noise that makes conversation nearly impossible, and an aggressive tourism economy that includes M&M's World, Madame Tussauds, and enough chain restaurants to make you question what you came to New York to eat. The billboards are impressive. The energy is intense. Standing in it for longer than 20 minutes is, for many visitors, exhausting rather than exhilarating. New York residents almost universally avoid Times Square except when unavoidable, which is itself a clear enough signal. The area has been dramatically safer and cleaner since its rehabilitation in the 1990s, which is worth acknowledging. What replaced the old Times Square is a pedestrian plaza surrounded by stores and restaurants that exist at essentially every American shopping mall. If you have 15 minutes and want a photograph, Times Square delivers. As a destination worth extended time and a dedicated trip, the consensus of returned visitors is fairly consistent. Number 18. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Myrtle Beach has 60 miles of Atlantic coastline, warm water through a long summer season, and a tourism infrastructure that has been built up over decades into something that manages to feel simultaneously overcrowded and cheap. The Grand Strand, as the area is called, draws around 14 million visitors annually, which is a significant number for a stretch of coast that was, within living memory, a relatively quiet regional resort. The beach itself is fine. The surrounding environment, outlet malls, mini-golf, souvenir shops, chain restaurants, and high-rise condo developments stacked one against the next, is what tends to generate the regret. Traffic on US 17 during peak summer weeks is notorious. Hotel rooms that look acceptable in online photos have a history of generating reviews, suggesting the photos were taken some years before the current state of the property. Myrtle Beach also ranks consistently among American cities for certain types of property crime targeting tourists. Some areas of the Grand Strand are substantially more pleasant than others. The Pawleys Island and Litchfield Beach sections to the south offer a considerably different experience than the Central Tourist Corridor. The problem is that most visitors book the Central Corridor because that is what comes up first in the search results. Number 17. Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Gatlinburg sits at the entrance to Great Smoky Mountains National Park, the most visited national park in the country, which you might expect to have produced a charming mountain gateway town. What it produced instead is approximately 8 miles of Smokies-themed commercial sprawl, Ripley's Believe It or Not, pancake restaurants stacked 3 deep on either side of the main road, and traffic that in peak season moves at a pace suggesting the entire eastern seaboard decided to visit simultaneously. The mountains themselves are genuinely beautiful. The park, once you are actually inside it, is genuinely worthwhile. Getting through Gatlinburg to reach the park entrance requires a tolerance for commercial tourism at a density that the surrounding scenery has done nothing to earn. The town also sits in a narrow valley with limited road infrastructure, which means that when traffic backs up, and it backs up with nowhere to divert. A significant portion of Gatlinburg was destroyed in the November 2016 wildfire that killed 14 people and damaged or destroyed over 2,400 structures. Much of what has been rebuilt reflects the same commercial model as before. The advice from most experienced Smokies visitors is consistent. Book lodging outside Gatlinburg, enter the park from a less congested access point, and treat the town as something to drive through rather than a destination in its own right. Number 16. South of the Border, Dillon, South Carolina. South of the Border is a roadside attraction and travel plaza at the North Carolina-South Carolina state line on Interstate 95 that has been a fixture of East Coast road trips since 1950. It was founded by Alan Schaefer as a modest beer stand. South Carolina's Dillon County was wet, while the neighboring North Carolina County was dry, and expanded over the following decades into a complex of motels, restaurants, a gas station, a fireworks superstore, and a collection of novelty shops presided over by a mascot named Pedro, whose iconography, to put it gently, has not aged particularly well in the 21st century. Hundreds of billboards along I-95 for 100 miles in each direction promise an experience the actual property has not, by most accounts, delivered since approximately 1985. The complex is dated, with novelty shops whose inventory appears largely unchanged from decades past. The motel accommodations draw reviews normally reserved for cautionary tales. South of the Border occupies a particular place in American road trip mythology. A huge number of Americans have some childhood memory of those billboards. The gap between that memory and the adult experience of actually stopping is a story that plays out repeatedly in travel reviews. It is still there, still operating. Some things endure through sheer inertia. Number 15. The National Mall in August, Washington, D.C. The National Mall in Washington, D.C. is genuinely one of the great civic spaces in the United States. The Smithsonian museums are world-class and free. The monuments are historically significant and visually striking. None of that changes the experience of visiting in August, which is when a substantial portion of American family vacations happen to fall, and when Washington, D.C. reliably produces heat and humidity that turns a 5-minute walk between attractions into a survival exercise. D.C. in August sits in what was once, and in some respects still is, a tidal swamp. The climate reflects this. Temperatures in the upper 90s combined with humidity levels that make the air feel physically substantial are standard for several weeks each summer. The monuments have limited shade. The distances between them are longer than they look on the map. The metro system, while functional, is crowded with the same families who are also hot and tired and have already been to 3 museums. The advice from experienced DC visitors is straightforward. Go in spring or fall. The cherry blossoms in late March and early April are genuinely worth organizing a trip around. August visits generate a reliable volume of travel regret that is largely a scheduling problem rather than a problem with the destination itself. Number 14. Fisherman's Wharf, San Francisco, California. Fisherman's Wharf occupies prime San Francisco waterfront and has been a tourist destination since the mid-20th century, when the actual fishing fleet was still a significant operation. The fleet is considerably smaller now. What fills its place is a tourism infrastructure of clam chowder in sourdough bread bowls, seafood restaurants of variable quality, Alcatraz tour departures, and shops selling cable car replicas. The chowder is fine. Alcatraz, which departs from Pier 33 near the wharf, is genuinely worth doing and is consistently one of the better reviewed attractions in the city. The wharf itself, the Pier 39 section in particular, with its sea lions on the docks, is pleasant for about 45 minutes. As a place to spend a significant portion of a San Francisco visit, it tends to crowd out the neighborhoods and experiences that make San Francisco actually distinctive. The city has neighborhoods, the Mission, the Castro, the Haight, Hayes Valley, that offer food, culture, and character no other American city replicates. Fisherman's Wharf offers a version of San Francisco broadly interchangeable with tourist waterfronts in any number of other cities. Visitors who spend their limited time there and miss the rest tend to figure this out on the way back to the airport. Number 13. Niagara Falls, New York side. Niagara Falls is one of the genuine natural wonders of North America, and the Canadian side does a reasonable job of honoring that. The American side, accessed through Niagara Falls, New York, is a significantly more complicated experience. Niagara Falls, New York, is a small city that experienced severe economic decline after losing its industrial base, and the areas surrounding the American Falls reflect that history. The state park manages the immediate falls area with some care, and the Maid of the Mist boat tour is consistently rated as a highlight. The broader city environment and tourist infrastructure are substantially less impressive than the waterfall itself. The falls are genuinely spectacular. The Horseshoe Falls among the most powerful waterfalls on Earth by volume. The recommendation from visitors who have done both sides is unambiguous. Stay on the Canadian side. The view is better, the surrounding area is more developed, and the experience is considerably less dispiriting. Number 12. Bourbon Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans is one of the most culturally distinct and genuinely interesting cities in the United States, and Bourbon Street in the French Quarter is where a large portion of first-time visitors spend their time, which is how a significant portion of them end up describing their New Orleans trip in terms that do not reflect what the city actually offers. Bourbon Street is a 6-block corridor of bars, strip clubs, souvenir shops, and restaurants serving a version of New Orleans cuisine calibrated for people who want the concept of the city rather than the reality. The smell in summer, decades of spilled beverages, and inadequate drainage baking in Louisiana heat is a distinctive element that photographs do not convey. The hand grenade cocktails are sized for maximum regret. The actual New Orleans, the one locals and knowledgeable visitors seek out, has one of the most vibrant live music scenes in the world, a food culture built on distinct culinary traditions going back centuries, and neighborhoods like the Marigny, Bywater, and Treme that reward real exploration. The experience of spending a New Orleans visit primarily on Bourbon Street and then describing New Orleans as a disappointment is a category error rather than an honest review of the city. Number 11. Venice Beach Boardwalk, Los Angeles, California. Venice Beach has a legitimate cultural history. It was a genuine countercultural hub in the 1960s and 1970s, and the outdoor Muscle Beach weightlifting area and the basketball courts have been part of Los Angeles street culture for decades. The boardwalk today draws enormous crowds and offers a chaotic mix of street performers, art vendors, cannabis dispensaries, and a general atmosphere that visitors either find energizing or overwhelming depending on their temperament. The beach itself is wide and pleasant. The Pacific is cold, but it is the Pacific. The surrounding area, however, has experienced significant challenges with homelessness in recent years. Encampments along portions of the boardwalk became extensive enough that the city of Los Angeles undertook a series of clearance operations, which addressed the immediate conditions but did not resolve the underlying circumstances. Visitors who arrive expecting the Venice Beach of popular imagination, colorful, eccentric, vaguely bohemian, and encounter the current boardwalk environment sometimes find the experience jarring. Abbot Kinney Boulevard, a few blocks inland, offers boutiques, restaurants, and a street scene that is distinctly Los Angeles without the boardwalk complications. The standing recommendation: beach in the morning before crowds build, Abbot Kinney afterward. Number 10. Dealey Plaza, Dallas, Texas. Dealey Plaza in Dallas occupies a genuinely significant place in American history. It is the site where President John F. Kennedy was assassinated on November 22, 1963, and the 6th floor museum at Dealey Plaza, located in the former Texas School Book Depository building, is a carefully curated and genuinely moving museum that handles the history with appropriate weight and seriousness. The plaza itself exists in a state many visitors find uncomfortable. The grassy knoll, the triple underpass, the X marks on Elm Street, managed as an open-air site with limited formal structure. Independent conspiracy tour operators work the plaza throughout the day. The overall atmosphere mixes legitimate historical reflection with entrepreneurial energy that some find dissonant given the nature of the event being commemorated. The museum is emphatically worth visiting. The plaza experience is more uneven. Visitors expecting a solemn, organized memorial find instead something more chaotic. Dallas has more to offer than its association with November 1963, and the city has invested in the surrounding West End Historic District. The disconnect between the museum's quality and the plaza's atmosphere is the specific source of many visitors' ambivalence. Number 9. The Las Vegas Strip, Nevada. The Las Vegas Strip is exactly what it advertises itself to be, which is part of the problem for visitors who did not read the advertisement carefully. The Strip is a concentrated environment of casino resorts, entertainment venues, restaurants, and nightclubs designed at every level to separate visitors from their money as efficiently and pleasurably as possible. It does this exceptionally well. The question is whether the experience is worth what it costs. Hotel room rates on the Strip have increased substantially over the past decade. Resort fees, mandatory daily charges added to room rates that cover amenities the guest may not use, are standard practice and add meaningfully to the listed price. Food and beverage costs inside the casino resorts run significantly higher than what the same quality would cost in any other American city. Parking, which was free at most Strip casinos for decades, is now charged at major properties. The entertainment offerings are genuinely world-class. The Sphere, the residency concerts, the high-end food options. What visitors who report regret tend to describe is the cumulative financial experience, spending significantly more than anticipated on something that looked, from the outside, like a reasonable vacation, and recalibrating expectations somewhere on the flight home. Number 8. Mount Rushmore, Keystone, South Dakota. Mount Rushmore is a genuinely impressive feat of engineering and sculpture. The 4 presidential faces carved into the granite of the Black Hills, Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln, are larger than they look in photographs and represent an extraordinary technical achievement for the 1927 to 1941 period in which they were created. Having said all of that, a significant portion of visitors report that the experience of being there is briefer and less immersive than the distance traveled to get there might suggest. The viewing terrace puts visitors roughly a mile from the sculpture. There is a museum and a walk of state flags. The visit typically runs 45 minutes to 2 hours, at the end of which there is a recognition that the sculpture is essentially what it looked like in the photographs, correctly scaled, but not a full-day destination on its own. Keystone, immediately adjacent, is a small commercial strip of souvenir shops and restaurants that serves the visitor traffic without offering much beyond that function. Travelers who combine Rushmore with the Crazy Horse Memorial, an ongoing private project carving a massive figure of the Oglala Lakota leader into a neighboring mountain, and a drive through Custer State Park tend to report a much more complete experience than those who drive specifically for Rushmore alone. Number 7. The Mall of America, Bloomington, Minnesota. The Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota, opened in 1992 and for a period was the largest mall in the United States, though it has since been surpassed. It remains an enormous structure, 5.6 million square feet, containing over 500 stores, an indoor amusement park called Nickelodeon Universe with full-size roller coasters, an aquarium, a miniature golf course, and enough restaurants to make meal decisions genuinely difficult. Visitors who arrive expecting a transcendent retail experience often find what is, structurally, a very large mall. The anchor stores are the standard American department store chain options. The specialty stores are largely the same chains available at malls across the country. The indoor amusement park is a genuine differentiator, particularly for families with children, and the aquarium is legitimately well regarded. But the journey to Bloomington, Minnesota, which for most non-local visitors involves significant travel, in pursuit of a shopping experience they could approximate at a regional mall, much closer to home, generates a specific kind of tourist regret. The Mall of America is best understood as a destination for the amusement park and aquarium, and as practical shelter from Minnesota winters for local residents. As a reason to book a flight from out of state, it has limitations the marketing does not always make clear. Number 6. South Beach, Miami, Florida. South Beach has a genuine claim to architectural and cultural significance. The Art Deco historic district along Ocean Drive and Collins Avenue is one of the best preserved collections of Art Deco architecture in the world, and the buildings are legitimately beautiful. The beach itself, wide, with fine white sand and warm Atlantic water, is objectively excellent. The issue, for a significant portion of visitors, is the gap between what the photographs suggest and what a summer weekend on Ocean Drive actually delivers. Peak season South Beach is expensive at a level that surprises visitors who have not priced it in advance. Hotel rooms in the Art Deco district at peak demand are among the most expensive in Florida, and the surrounding restaurants and clubs price accordingly. The Ocean Drive club scene generates noise levels that make the neighboring hotel rooms challenging to sleep in on weekend nights, a detail that is somewhat relevant if sleeping is part of the vacation plan. The beach itself fills to a density in summer and spring break periods that reduces the experience to finding and defending a section of sand. Visitors who approach South Beach selectively, Art Deco tours in the morning, beach before noon, dinner off Ocean Drive where the same quality costs considerably less, report a far better experience than those who book a full weekend on Ocean Drive in March and encounter the full force of what that decision delivers. Number 5. The Alamo, San Antonio, Texas. The Alamo is the most visited historic site in Texas and one of the most significant landmarks in American history. The 1836 Battle of the Alamo, in which a garrison of Texan defenders held the mission against Mexican Army forces for 13 days before being overrun, is a foundational moment in Texas mythology and a genuine historical event worth engaging with seriously. The on-site museum and the Long Barrack, the original 18th century structure, are genuinely informative and carefully maintained. The issue for most first-time visitors is scale. The Alamo sits in the middle of downtown San Antonio, surrounded on 3 sides by a commercial plaza, a hotel, and the streetscape of a working modern city. The Mission Church, which is the iconic structure that appears in photographs, is considerably smaller than the mental image that the Alamo tends to generate. The battlefield, the full extent of the original mission compound where the fighting took place, extends well beyond the preserved structures and is now occupied by city infrastructure that provides no particular indication of what stood there in 1836. San Antonio has invested significantly in restoring the larger mission footprint, and the Riverwalk nearby is a genuinely pleasant urban amenity. The complaint from disappointed visitors is almost always about size rather than substance. The Alamo is historically important and worth visiting, but the physical scale of the preserved site does not match what 2 centuries of cultural weight suggested it would be. Number 4. Roswell, New Mexico. Roswell, New Mexico became internationally famous because of an incident in July 1947 when something crashed on a ranch about 75 miles north of town, and the U.S. Army Air Force first announced it had recovered a flying disc, then walked that statement back within 24 hours and issued a correction attributing the debris to a weather balloon. What that incident actually was has been debated extensively ever since, and the town of Roswell has built an entire tourism economy around the debate. The International UFO Museum and Research Center on Main Street is the primary destination, and it is a thorough, if unsophisticated, presentation of the 1947 incident and UFO research more broadly. The town's commercial district is heavily themed around aliens and extraterrestrial imagery. The streetlights have alien head covers, restaurants and shops adopt the theme with varying degrees of commitment. The museum gift shop is substantial. The underlying historical question, what exactly crashed in 1947, and what the Army's rapid reversal actually means, is genuinely interesting and remains unresolved. Whether the Roswell tourism experience does that question justice is a separate matter, and most visitors conclude, somewhere around the second alien-themed coffee mug, that it does not. Number 3. The original Starbucks, Seattle, Washington. The original Starbucks location in Pike Place Market in Seattle is technically the second location. The first original store was at a different address and closed decades ago, but it trades successfully on the branding of being the originating point of a global coffee chain, and it draws consistent lines of visitors who want to experience the source. Pike Place Market itself is genuinely excellent, one of the better public market experiences in the United States, with quality seafood, produce, local vendors, and the fish-throwing tradition that has been going on long enough to be both a performance and a genuine piece of market culture. The Starbucks in the market is a small, somewhat cramped store that sells the same coffee available at approximately 36,000 other Starbucks locations worldwide. The merchandise is Pike Place Market branded and sells quickly to visitors who want a souvenir of having been there. The consistent observation from visitors who stood in line: the coffee tastes the same as the Starbucks near their home. The market itself is worth significant time. The line for a specific coffee shop within it, measured against what it delivers, is a recurring subject of reflection among returned visitors. Number 2. The Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Orlando, Florida. Universal. Orlando's Wizarding World of Harry Potter is a genuinely impressive theme park achievement. The physical recreation of Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley is detailed, immersive, and represents a significant investment in environmental storytelling. The rides, particularly the Hagrid's Magical Creatures motorbike adventure, are among the best theme park attractions in the country by most independent assessments. None of that is the source of the regret. The regret comes from the economics. Universal Orlando pricing has increased substantially over recent years. A single-day ticket to access both the Hogsmeade section in Islands of Adventure and the Diagon Alley section in Universal Studios Florida requires either a park-to-park ticket or 2 separate admissions. Peak season wait times for the signature rides routinely run 90 minutes to 2 hours. The Butterbeer, which is the signature food and beverage experience of the Wizarding World, costs more than the economic logic of a cup of cream soda topped with butterscotch foam would ordinarily support. Families who budget for a Harry Potter trip and then work through the actual costs, tickets, express passes, food, accommodation in a city built around expensive theme park tourism, sometimes find that the financial reality was not adequately communicated by the marketing. The attraction is good. The total cost of accessing it can be startling. Number 1. Times Square on New Year's Eve, New York City, New York. Times Square earns a second entry on this list because New Year's Eve deserves its own consideration. The Times Square. New Year's Eve ball drop is one of the most televised events in the world, and the experience of being there in person, standing in a crowd of up to 2 million people in a cordoned-off section of Midtown Manhattan through hours of waiting in December, with no access to bathrooms, no ability to leave your position and return to it, and no guarantee of a view of the ball, is something that a very large number of people do once and describe afterward in terms that suggest they would not repeat it. Crowd control sections begin filling in the early afternoon. Some people arrive before noon. Once you are in a section, leaving means losing your spot. The temperature in late December is frequently well below freezing. Food options within the sections are extremely limited. The ball drops at midnight, meaning approximately 8 to 10 hours of standing in a cold, densely packed crowd is the standard investment for roughly 30 seconds of watching a lit sphere descend a pole. The television version, watched from somewhere warm with food and a bathroom nearby, is by almost every measure a superior experience. Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve delivers the spectacle without the frostbite. The gap between the idea of being there and the reality of being there is, for Times Square on New Year's Eve, perhaps the widest of any entry on this list. Being there is a story. Being comfortable is better. If this saved you a trip somewhere, hit that like button and subscribe. There are plenty more of these worth knowing about before you book.